Oh, hello there. My name's Mr. Evans. Welcome to my station. I do all sorts of things around here. It's my job to make sure everything at the station runs just the way it should, without confusion or delay. But no matter how busy I am, I always find time to read a story about the adventures of my good friend Thomas. And it's about that time now. Would you like to hear the story too? That's great. I'll tell you what, I'll meet you in my office. See you there. Oh, you got here before me. Well, on my way here, I bumped into the greengrocer, and she gave me all these amazing vegetables, look. Now, I don't think I'll be able to eat all these today. But these runner beans remind me of a story all about beans. And this story is called Thomas and the Beanstalk. It was the end of a very busy day on the island of Sodor. As the engines settled down for the night, Thomas the tank engine told his friends James and Percy his favourite bedtime story, Jack and the Beanstalk. I like the part about the magic beans, Percy peeped when the story was over. Do giants like railway engines? James wondered. The next day, Thomas picked up a load of produce from the farm. Sacks of beans, Thomas chuckled, just like in my bedtime story. Suddenly, Diesel 10 appeared around a bend. Get out of my way, little toy tank engine, Diesel 10 roared. Thomas couldn't move fast enough. Diesel 10 bashed into him and raced off. Thomas crashed into a side rail and tipped over. Thomas was fine, but some of the bags of beans had burst, scattering beans in the grass. Then, suddenly, a tiny leaf shot straight out of the ground, right before Thomas's amazed eyes. That tiny leaf grew first into a big plant, and then became a towering beanstalk, stretching all the way up into the sky. They must have been magic beans after all, Thomas exclaimed. Thomas noticed that there were rails circling this beanstalk all the way up. Thomas decided to be brave and ride up the tracks to see what was at the top of the beanstalk. Around and around he climbed and climbed, and then he climbed some more. It seemed like the beanstalk went on forever. Finally, Thomas reached the top. He could hardly believe his eyes. There, up above the clouds, Thomas found a giant magical world. Everything made Thomas feel like he was the size of a child's toy engine. Thomas went to explore. He followed the smaller set of tracks into a castle courtyard. Here, the buildings, trees and railroad signs were exactly the same size as everything on Sodor. Thomas looked up and around at the castle with its impossibly high gates and turrets. Why is everything else so big? He wondered aloud. Suddenly, the ground beneath him began to shake, and a giant foot landed in front of him. Thomas looked up and saw that the foot was attached to a man. He towered over the entire courtyard. He was a giant, just like the giant from Thomas's bedtime story. Thomas didn't know what to do. He had never seen anyone this big before. Before he could make a move, he heard a little voice. Quick, over here. Thomas turned and saw a gleaming gold steam engine on the track ahead of him. He rolled towards her, but before he could speak to her, the giant reached down with his enormous hand and picked the little engine up and put her down on another track. To Thomas's surprise, the giant kept his hand on the gold engine, pushing her back and forth on the track. All the while he made peeps and whistles in his booming voice. The giant was playing with the little engine. He thought she was a toy. Then a loud horn blasted nearby. Thomas looked up and saw Diesel 10 approaching. But the diesel engine looked different. He was enormous too, big enough for the giant to ride in. The giant left the gold engine and walked over to the huge diesel. Thomas hurried over to the gold engine. What's this place? Thomas asked her. I don't really know, the gold engine replied. All I do know is that I want to go home. She told Thomas that she had been taken away from her home, where she was a very special engine. I run on golden coal, she said, but here I'm just the giant's favourite toy. Thomas wanted to help the gold engine. I don't know how to get to your home from here, but I can take you back to mine, he said. Thomas told her about the island of Sodor, where everything was the right size for them. You would be safe and happy there, he said. I climbed up a giant beanstalk to get here, Thomas said. It's this way. Thomas headed toward the courtyard gate, but after a few feet, he slowed and stopped. He was out of coal. I must have used it all climbing the beanstalk, he cried. Take some of my coal, the gold engine told him. Quickly, I think I have just enough to get us both out of here. With the special gold coal in his hopper, Thomas was full steam again, and he felt magical. He raced toward the gate with the golden engine close behind. At that moment, the giant made a loud sniffing noise. I smell steam, he said. He turned and saw the two little engines trying to get away. His thunderous voice boomed. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I see two engines on the run. If they're toys or if they're real, I'll now have two engines to steal. The giant chased after Thomas and the gold engine. Giant Diesel 10 followed, wanting to help the giant catch his favourite toys. Thomas sped up. If they could just get back to Sodor, everything would be all right. He knew it. Thomas and the gold engine barreled down, down, down the tracks, spinning around and around the beanstalk. We made it! We're on Sodor! Thomas cried as they reached the bottom. But when the two engines looked up, they were shocked to see that the giant was coming down the beanstalk after them. Oh no! Thomas exclaimed. Sodor was full of little engines. The giant would take them all for his toys. Thomas did the only thing he could think of. He backed up and bashed into the beanstalk. With all his might, he saw his friends James and Percy in the distance. He called for them to help. Soon, all four engines slammed into the beanstalk, over and over, as hard as they could. Finally, it looked like it was about to fall. Thomas closed his eyes, bracing for the crash. Thud! Thomas opened his eyes and saw two rescue engines pulling him upright. Percy and James were still there, but the little gold engine was gone. What happened? Thomas asked. Where's the beanstalk? What beanstalk? Percy asked. We came when we heard about your crash with Diesel 10. Thomas told his friends about everything that had happened, about the beanstalk, the magical world above the clouds, the giant and special gold engine. It seemed so real. But it must have been a dream. Thomas, look, Percy said. Thomas's driver was holding up a single piece of gold-coloured coal he'd found in Thomas's hopper. The driver looked puzzled. What's that? James asked. Thomas didn't know what to say, because it had all been a dream, hadn't it? Well, what a great story. Now, what shall I do with all these vegetables? I know it's important to eat vegetables to be healthy and make you run faster. And I've just thought of a fun way to eat them. Are you ready? Let's get started. This is our veggie tray. To make it, you'll need some vegetables, some cream cheese, a kitchen board, a knife, an adult to help you, and some railway track. Let's make the engine first. Ask an adult to help you with the cutting. They should start by cutting a piece of cucumber for the engine's cab. They'll need to cut a slice along the cucumber to make a base, so it doesn't roll away. Then, get them to cut a piece from a smaller cucumber to make your engine's boiler. Don't forget, they'll need to cut a slice from one side, like they did before. Now they need to cut a piece of string bean to make the funnel. Then they should cut a hole in the engine's boiler for the funnel to fit into. I'm using a piece of rosemary to look like smoke from the funnel. Next, they should cut a shape from a piece of pepper to make the roof of the engine's cab. Then, Ask them to cut some slices of carrot to make the wheels. You can use the cream cheese to attach the wheels to your engine. My engine has 6 wheels, just like Thomas. Now, let's make some trucks for our engine. Ask the adult to cut a piece from a small pepper. Take out the seeds and then make 4 wheels from a carrot. You can stick them on using the cream cheese. Use the cheese to fill the truck. Sprinkle some rosemary on top. Let's make another truck. Ask the adult to cut a piece of cucumber and take out the inside. Then, cut some pepper into small strips, a bit like logs, and stack them in the cucumber. You'll need 4 carrot wheels, which you can stick on with the cream cheese. Our veggie train is looking great! Now all we need are some railway signals. I'm using a radish, some cucumber and a pepper. Make a base for your signals out of carrot. And attach to the signals with cocktail sticks. And now you're done. Toot toot! Full steam ahead, veggie train! See you next time!